Hey guys, Namaste and a very good morning to all our viewers joining us on YouTube. I am your host Digvijay Wanchoo reporting live from the capital, and I would like to welcome you all to the very first remote Flutter meetup of 2021. 2020 is finally a part of history. I mean, we have made it through the toughest of times together as a community, lending a hand to anyone who needed it and collaborating to make this world a better place, one moment at a time. And that is exactly what we are celebrating today. Speaking of collaborations, it gives me immense pleasure to announce that today's meetup is in collaboration with the At Company. If you haven't heard of them, in pursuit of breaking the common notion around data security and giving control back to the people, the At Company has been working tirelessly to introduce a new concept called ad signs. Well, in simple terms, an ad sign is like having a single true identity on the internet that gives you complete control over the data that you share. But they believe that after all, it is your data and you decide who you share with, right? So I want to thank the amazing folks at the Ad Company for making this meetup happen today. For all the viewers who have joined us before, you of course have an idea about who we are and what we do. But for all the new people who are joining and watching us today, GeekyAnts is a company that was founded in 2006, and we build mobile apps and web apps. And we are huge with our communities, and we absolutely love the technology community. And to work with them and to get closer to them and be an integral part of these communities, we started our initiatives of hosting meetups and attending conferences. And Flutter Bangalore, Flutter BLR as you know it, is a byproduct of that initiative. And we have been doing these meetups since the past 3 years, and we have been trying to bring the community together to talk about the technologies that we love. And well, it has been successful so far, and more than successful, it has been magical. And today we are doing that yet again. So before we begin with the show, I wanted to announce that it's going to be an exciting event because we are doing giveaways thanks to the Ad Company again. um, 3 random people are going to get a chance to win some amazing exclusive ad sign merchandise or hoodies, and 2 of the lucky ones are going to be winning $100 voucher courtesy of the Ad Company. To be a part of this giveaway and to be eligible for these prizes, you need to follow our Twitter handle, which is at the rate FlutterBLR, and tweet about how you think that data can be made more private and secure in the future. And don't forget to use the hashtag FlutterBLR. That's FLUTTERBLR. Um, Also, as a thank you to all the viewers that are going to join us today, we are going to be distributing $10 ad sign vouchers to every viewer who joins us. To be eligible for that, check out the description down below, and there you'll find a form link that you have to fill up with all of your information, and we will get back to you post event with your vouchers. Um, so in the spirit of all this, today's Flutter meetup is not going to be just about Flutter, but we are also going to be talking about data privacy, data security, how you think you can improve your security over the internet, how you think, because privacy is very extremely valued in today's time, and the internet is such a place where it is just as important. And that is what we will also be talking about today. So our agenda is pretty simple for the day. We have 2 speakers who would be talking about all things Flutter and the things that they love, and then we have some folks from the Ad Company and some other people who will be joining us for a panel discussion, which will be on building trust in mobile apps. So I think it's best to get on with the show, and allow me to introduce the very first speaker of the day. Uh, Sameer Kashyap. He is going to be talking about simple state management with Riverpod. I think it's pretty simple. Let's just have Sameer here and let's talk to him.
Hi, Digvijay.
Hi, Sameer. A very good morning to you.
Thank you for this
How are you
opportunity.
doing today?
Yeah, doing well.
Wonderful, wonderful
What?
to know. So as I'm good. Thank you so much. It's a little cold here. I think my jacket would give that away, but yeah, apart from that, we're golden. Um, so as a quick introduction for Sameer, he is a final year engineering student in computer sciences, and he holds a deep passion for technology. Um, he has been contributing to the open source, especially to Flutter. with the goal to help the student community grow. And he is also the lead for the Google Developer Students Club in your
Yeah,
college,
yeah,
and has also recently got selected as an MLH fellow for the spring cohort. Um, so Samir, I think I'd let you take away the stage, and let's tell everybody what you have to say.
yeah. Sure. Thank you so much.
All the best.
I'll be sharing my screen. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Samir. I'm from Bangalore, and I'll be talking about state management with Riverpod today. Just share my screen. So hope my screen is visible. Okay. Let's get started. So yeah. So if you aren't already aware of state, if you're new to Flutter, and if you don't know what state is actually, let me put it in a few simple terms. So state is like a middleman between your data and your UI. So the way it should be architected, your app should be architected, is that the state drives the UI and not the data. So if you're new to Flutter, you usually use set state and then used all of your business logic within the widget tree, but that would not be recommended for larger apps because it will just get all fuzzy and you won't know what is happening in your app actually. So it's always best recommendation to move your state to another separate layer, which will act as a middle layer between your data and your UI. So in simple terms, your UI is a function of state, which means that as the state reacts, the UI builds, and that's you can see it so good in Flutter. So if you're really new to state management, I would recommend checking out Provider, which is the official recommended package by the Flutter team. But Provider has some issues. And let's first take a look at the state of state management. So so how would you actually accomplish this state management solution? Well, there are more than 50 plus packages in Flutter. If you go to pub.dev and search, you'll get more than 50 plus. And here are some of the most popular ones. And it's been even a hot debate in the Flutter community where people are arguing which is the best one to follow. But as the Flutter team suggests, Provider is the best one to get started with if you're a beginner, and you have rest of the options which you can pick and choose according to your taste. And obviously I've stuck with Provider, and then since Provider has a few issues and the same author came out with another package called Riverpod, I have moved on to that, and I find it really simple to manage state with Riverpod. So let's take a look at what are the problems with Provider. So if you've used Provider, this is the biggest headache that you will always have. As a beginner, I struggled with this so much. Every time you try to listen to a provider, you'll get this error that provider of type not found, which means that the provider is not above the widget tree as an ancestor of the widget tree. So this is the most common runtime error, and you need to always keep, and you'll only know this once you run the app. So it's a big time constraint and really slows down your development. And then this was one of the complaints that Provider didn't provide for. Providers of same type could not be given, as you had to put all of your provider in the top of your widget tree. So any provider, if it was the same type, so suppose in this case it's a string, so every time you would refer to this provider, you would only be referring to one of these and not both. You can't access both of them. And then this was one of the more bigger problems. When it comes to complex apps, you would want to dispose state from within another page or other widget, but this was not possible in Provider. And every time you would try to do this, you would get a runtime error saying this. And then one more problem was that it depended on Flutter. You needed build context to always read a provider or listen to a provider. You couldn't do it in a simple Dart package. So Provider almost got, so when Remy did release Riverpod, he was searching for a name, and my answer almost got accepted because I tweeted at him to asking him to call it the Apple ecosystem, because all of his packages work so well together. And I would recommend the same if you're using any of Remy Rossel's package. Just use all of what he has done. They just integrate so well with each other. And he even declared me the winner, but unfortunately that didn't go well, and it was called Riverpod again. So let's take a look at Riverpod. Like, how is it different, and what are the upgrades, and what are the problems it solves that Provider didn't do? So Riverpod uses the features that Provider lack for. So it is compile safe. Like I told, once your program compiles, you won't get any runtime errors. So if you have made any error, you'll always get it at compile time and not runtime. And it's Flutter independent, so you can finally use it in only Dart packages. You can combine multiple providers. As you can do with streams, this was not possible with the normal provider package, like with streams, but now you can finally do it. And then you can even dispose providers that you're no longer listening to, like the dispose feature I mentioned below. And finally, you can have providers of the same type. So let's get started with the basics. So if you go on pub.dev and search for Riverpod, there'll be 3 results that showing up. So you might be confused as to which one to go with. So here's a basic clue. So if you're only using just Dart code, you can use just the package Riverpod. And if you want to use it with Flutter, you can use Flutter Riverpod. And there's one more special package called Hooks Riverpod. So Flutter Hooks is again by the same author and builds upon the same concept of React hooks. So if you're familiar with React, Flutter Hooks is more simpler than React hooks and completely eliminates your stateful widget logic by replacing it with a hook widget. And you'll see more of that code later on. So this is how you would create a provider. Getting started, so providers are global, meaning that they're global variables, but that doesn't mean they're actually global. They're inserted into the widget tree at runtime, but you declare it as global variables, and you can declare it anywhere in your project. So this is how you would create a simple provider. So a provider is just something that gives a reference to an instance of a class. So to create just a provider which you won't listen to changes for, you can just create it by doing the first line, final repo provider equals repository. So this is the most common use case where you have a repository of API calls where you want to just reference the API calls in your state. And then you can even create providers of a single type like int. So here I have a stream provider which will yield 42. And then you can even create a provider of which you can listen to states. So if you're familiar with change notifier, state notifier is an upgrade over that and builds upon the value listenable builder. So after creating your provider and before you start consuming it, you have to make sure that your root of the visit tree is wrapped with the provider scope. Without this, you can't create your providers. And this is what enables you to insert your provider at that particular time so that you don't get those runtime errors. So Riverpod provides a lot of flexibilities to consumer provider. So the first one would be a consumer widget. So if you've used provider package, you'll be very familiar with this. So a consumer widget, you can wrap only the part of your widget tree where you're listening to changes and wrap it with a consumer. And this gives a parameter called watch. So watch is where you insert your counter provider which you created earlier. So you just reference the counter provider or the final variable that you created, and then you listen to the state, and this will return the most famous counter app example. So here you can listen to the state of the counter, and as it increments, the state will change. So another way to do the same thing is by extending a consumer widget instead of a stateless or a stateful widget. So again, this will give another parameter in the build method called watch. So again, you can do the same thing as above and watch for the provider, and then listen to it in the widget tree. And then there's a special way called, like I told, using the Flutter hooks package. So you can use hook widget, and then you can use provider as a hook to listen to that provider state. And I prefer this the most simplest way because this helps us completely eliminate stateful widgets and the boilerplate that comes with it. So let me show you a quick example of how simple it is to manage state with Riverpod and how easily you can build a to-do app in 5 simple steps. So first, while building a to-do app, create your data class. So when anytime we build any app, we always make sure to create our entity classes. And this is my data class. So it has 3 simple parameters: ID, description, and if the state of the to-do, if it's completed or not. So the second step would be to create a controller class. So this is a class that comes with the Riverpod package, and it is the most recommended way to manage state. It's called the state notifier class. So this will be where your state logic lies. So it's simple. It's simple to use. Just extend the class with state notifier instead of what you did with change notifier, and then you put the type of state, and then you have to override the state by calling super, and you can pass in the initial state there. So the third step would be to add the state logic, the business logic. So here I have three simple methods. So add, toggle, and remove. So these would be the most basic things in a to-do app, where I'm adding a to-do or toggling it completed or incompleted, and then removing the to-do completely. So you can see the logic here. Adding a to-do is just one line. So all you have to do is deserialize the state using the spread operator, and then add the new to-do onto it. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that state in state notifier is immutable. So you can't assign the same object again to it, and the state won't rebuild if you do that. So always have to make sure that state is a clone or a copy or a new object of what you're already doing. So that's why always make sure to call chain an operation or spread it in a new list. You can see I'm doing that all over the place. So here I'm calling to list, here I'm spreading the list, and here I am again calling to list, so that there's a new object and the state rebuilds. And then the final step would be to create your provider, just like I showed. So to creating a provider is simple as calling final to this provider, a global variable, calling state notifier provider, and the class which your controller class, which is the to do notifier in this case. And I'm passing an initial state of empty list in this case. And one more feature which I mentioned was listening to a provider inside another provider, and which is what I'm doing right here. So you can see that I'm watching the above provider inside the second provider, so that I get only the completed to-dos in this list. And since this is only a provider, even though it is just a provider which doesn't have any listening state, it will still rebuild once this provider changes. And then finally, you consume it in your widget tree. So that is simple too. Like I showed, you just use a hook widget or a consumer widget, and then you just watch or use provider to listen to the state. Like as you can see, I'm doing the same thing here. So I'm just calling to-dos and listening to the state of to-do provider, which will give me all the list of to-dos in my state. And the same thing for completed to-dos. And then I'm just spreading it over a list view and showing the to-do items. So let's see how this turned out, right? Let's see what's the result of this. So I've structured my project in MVVM fashion. So you can see this is my state, whatever the state controller class I showed, this logic of that. So here I'm extending the state notifier, and I'm passing in a list of to-dos, and to-do here is my data class. And I have all the methods that I previously showed. Okay, so this is the initial state I'm passing. You can see inside this provider, I'm passing the sample to-dos. So that's why you're getting two initial states, initial to-dos in the state. So let me just show you a demo of the app. As you can see, that you can easily manage your state, and once I do completed this part, the completed to-dos will rebuild and it will come here. And if I just undo it, and it will go away. So this is how simple it is to achieve a simple to-do app and to manipulate adding, removing, and toggling states and modifying the states. So you can see it can be done in either one line or 3 lines at maximum. So you can even edit this, and the state will rebuild. So you can see now it became by dog. And then one more trick that I didn't show is that you can even use search, like you can even do full text search locally in just like 10 lines. So here is a search bar. So every time I do on change, it's building my entire search logic is within my control class. So you can see here, it rebuilds. And all of this and this entire logic was done only in this many lines. So all I'm doing here is calling where and filtering out the search list, and then just assigning it to state. So every time you want to make your state rebuild, all you have to do is assign it to the state variable called state. So you can see it's a getter and setter of the controller class, and assigning it to it will rebuild the state. And the last trick I would like to show in this app is how easy it is to also do something as complex as state restoration. So I'm only using this logic to restore my state. So suppose I delete a to-do, and I can undo it that easily. So all I'm doing is caching the previous state. I'm just assigning this the state that was to a previous, like a variable. And then once I click on reset, I'm just checking if it was not null and assigning it back to state. So all it takes is like 3-4 lines to do logic as state restoration. So this was a simple list of to-dos, but what if you have more complex state, right? So what if you have 2, 3, 4 lists of to-dos? So that is also very simple and elegant with Riverpod and state modifier. So all you have to do is create, of the way I like to do it is use freeze and create a sealed union. So this way, this is what will keep track of the states. So you can consider these as the 3 states that we'll have in my app. So usually any app will have a loading, a loaded, or an error state. So this is what I'm doing here. And the logic becomes just a slightly bit different. And I'm using a local database here called Sambas where I'm caching the values. So I'm just getting the to-dos from DB, and once I find a list of to-dos, I just set the state to to-do state.loaded. So this sets the state and shows the data on the screen. So let me just demo this quickly. So if your state was that complex, all you have to do is instead of just calling to-dos.map, you would have to listen to your state, each of the classes. So here I have a loading state, I have a loaded state. So in each of those cases, what would I want my visit tree to look like? So in loading, I would want a circular progress indicator, and then in loaded, I would want it to show the actual data. And then in empty, I would just want to show the add to panel, so I can add new data to it. Right? So let me just show that. Yeah, you can see that these were the datas in the database. So it loaded and it is showing the new datas. So this works the same way. So instead of listening to 2 providers, I'm just putting both of them in the same state. So you can see here, instead of creating 2 different providers where I was showing completed and then all the to-dos. So in this case, I'm just putting the to-dos list and the completed list in one single state. So each one of them will rebuild, and the logic is just a tiny bit different. So every time I add a new to-do, I just add it to the current state. And then this is where the logic changes, because every time I click on a to-do, it should complete. So here I check which of the to-dos are completed, and then I add it. The C will be the second parameter, which is the completed to-dos, and it works here as well, as you can see. So this was the state management with Riverpod. So this is how simple it is, and I would really recommend trying it out. So compared to other state management solutions like Block or Mobex, which have a lot of boilerplate code generation, Riverpod has nothing, and you can just manage your simple states in 1 or 2 lines. And that's it from my side. Thank you. And if you want to get the project, do scan this code. And I'll be available. You can follow me on GitHub and LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm very active there, and I would love to connect with you all. Thank you.
Well, hi again, Samir.
Yeah, hi Digvijay.
Hi, that was amazing. That was wonderful. I mean, Riverpod seems really useful. I mean, it does away with a lot of code and can give you a lot of freedom. I mean, I was just looking at what you were doing, and it's brilliant.
Yeah,
In the very least.
Since it was a rewrite of provider, it's really
Yep.
solves all this.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Samir, that was an amazing talk. We were looking for some questions from the viewers on YouTube, but
Yeah, sure.
apparently we don't have any. That's probably because you just explained everything so well. Nobody has any questions. So I think we are going to leave it at that. Samir, but we
Sure.
would love for you to join us back towards the end of the event. So do stick around.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Wonderful. We'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
All right, guys. So that was Samir Kashyap, and he was talking about building a simple to-do app using Riverpod and how you can manage simple state management. Let's move on with the rest of the show. Our next speaker on the cards is uh, Ganesh. He is going to be talking about null safety in Dart and Flutter. So why don't we have Ganesh on the screen now?
Yeah.
There he is.
Hi.
Hi, Ganesh. It has been such a long time. I know that we met the last time in a physical meetup that was held at GeekyAnts, and now you're back here after such a long time. It is wonderful
Yeah.
to see you again.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see you too. Yeah.
Thank you so much. How has it been going for you?
It's been good and it's been tough as well because of all the restrictions which is going on to travel and things like that. But yeah.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, it has been tough for all of us, but 2020 is behind us, and I hope everything that year brought is behind us as well. We can
Yeah,
only hope
right.
for the best. So,
True.
as a quick introduction, of course, guys, Ganesh is working as a software technologist with Philips. He is currently, if I'm not wrong, working on some diagnostic X-ray legacy systems,
Yeah,
and of
right.
course, on some future technological advancements as a Java expert. Uh, he loves to travel. He loves to write tech reviews and is also a YouTube star, apparently. So he has his own YouTube channel called Gadget Kada, where he talks about all the tips and hacks and tricks that you can use in your daily life and make technology work for you in strange and mysterious ways, much like the universe. So,
Yeah,
Ganesh, I'm going to let you take the stage and, well, take it away. All the best.
sure. Thank you. Okay, I'll start sharing. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about all about null safety. So this is a pretty new topic. Let's just go. So what will you learn from this? So we learn what is null safety, why do we need null safety, how to use or write null safety, and what are the next steps you can do to make your code null safe. So let's first talk what is null or what is this null safety and what is this about. So why have I given this a picture of lockers? So imagine we have a set of lockers and let's say for example in the red one there should be apples, in the yellow one there should be pineapples, and maybe blue ones should have water bottles, and we just lock it and we just give the key to the users so or the students, and we say that these are the things which you would find there. And imagine that the student comes and they open one of these lockers and they find it's empty. So that means that we have told that there is apples in the red ones, but there may not be. So that is what actually null means. It means that it's not there. So the object is not there. What? So variables, we save everything as variables. So you can actually, it's the lockers are analogous to variables, and where we store whatever values we want. For example, if you want string, we store a string, and if nothing is there, that is it. It is termed as null. So it is a pretty old concept. It's there in all languages. So earlier, how we used to do it in Dart is that we create a variable, and let's say that at any other line, we are not initializing it or we are not giving any value to that variable, and we are saying that okay, print locker.length. So it is a method inside this locker or a string. Sorry. Yeah, in a string we have a length method and we are calling this. Similarly, if we have another variable, imagine you are calling that, and since we have not initialized this, it will not throw you an compiler error, but it will throw you a runtime failure. So this kind of, if you have missed some runtime failures like this, it can cause a Flutter app failure. In case of Flutter, the app crashes and the UI crashes. That means the customer is not happy and the developer is not happy as well. So how would we handle this? So that is the next question. So earlier in my earlier talks also, I've always talked about Dart Analyzer. So Dart Analyzer is like an old man. So he's like Yoda. He knows everything. He'll tell you that okay, should not do this. You should do it like this and things like that. Now imagine that or Yoda on a Super Saiyan mode, wherein it can know, okay, fine, this can cause a null pointer exception. So or a null exception. So in Java, we always have a null pointer exception. In Dart also, currently we have null exceptions wherein you pass a null value and you're not checking it and you're using it, and it will cause a null exception in the runtime. So how do we do that? So there are a few null safety principles. First is non-nullable by default. What it means is that they have changed the language in such a way that by default, if you create any variables, it is not nullable. So you cannot initialize and make it as a null. Okay. So then the second step is that it is incrementally adoptable, meaning what it means is that you can slowly adopt to null safety. You do not require the whole application to be moved to null safe. You can slowly in phases, you can move the application to null safe. The third one is that fully sound. So that is what they want to achieve. So that is what the Dart team and the Flutter team wants to achieve, that all the applications or all the code which is done using Dart or Flutter be fully sound. So what they mean by fully sound? So fully sound means that there will not be any null exceptions or null issues in runtime. So the code will not fail due to null. So that is why they want, and that is what they mean by a fully sound. So let's just go by how you can create a variable which is null safe. So if you see here on the left side, you can see a Dart without null safety, which was the earlier existing one, wherein you have to create a locker or a variable, and then you just say, okay, that dot length. So this creates a null pointer or null exception during runtime. And with null safety, what you cannot create something like this. And you have, if you are creating, you have to actually initialize it. So before using it, you have to initialize it. So I had told that, the Dart analyzer or Yoda, he is very intelligent. He knows that whenever you are using it, he'll just check that if it has been initialized or not. And during compile time itself, it will throw an error that, it is a null and you cannot use like that. So let's say sometimes, nullable variables are needed, right? For example, in a REST APIs or in an API call or, server calls, there are use cases where null is required. So how will you handle that? So what they did is they actually splitted the whole, data structures into two types. One is a nullable type and the other one is a non-nullable type. So if you create normally like string locker, it is a non-nullable type. And if you want a nullable variable, you have to create string and a question mark. So let's say this is just an example. You can add this question mark to any other data type. It will again become a nullable data type. Now, there are a few drawbacks of this nullable data type is that you cannot call a method directly like this. We'll come back to that in next few slides. So let's say how an instance field. So when an instance field is given, it must either be initialized at the declaration using an initializing formal, or be initialized in the constructor's initialization list. So if you see here, I have a variable which is initialized here, or if it is passed in the constructor, that is also okay, or it has to be initialized inside the constructor itself. So these are three ways where you can initialize the instance fields of it might be a data type or anything like that. So next, local variable. So local variable must be definitely assigned before it is used. So earlier we had this example, right? And if you see here, I'm printing it here. But then in this code, it is just an if-else code, and Dart analyzer or Yoda, as I call him, it knows that, it has been initialized. So in this scenario, it will not throw an error, and this will never be null, because it's even when what we are passing is not a non-nullable type. It's a non-nullable type. So this also cannot be null, and this also cannot be null, because we are either giving it as n or as a -1. So this will pass. There will not be any null issues, right? So yeah. So then what about optional or named parameters, wherein you given, parameters are optional or named? In that scenario, you definitely have to give a default value. Until if you don't give a default value, the analyzer will again throw an error. So if you don't want to give a default value, then it should be a nullable variable, wherein you say string and question mark and name. Then you do not have to give this whatever default value you want. So that is the case. Next, okay, let's say that what if Yoda doesn't agree with you? There are certain cases where the Dart analyzer would say that it is wrong, but you know that it will work. So there are certain scenarios like that. For example, in this scenario, if you see, I have a locker class and I have a locker. This is the constructor, and here I call this method call locker number. And in this method, let's say that you are sure that it returns a integer, right? It returns an int which is not null at all. You're sure about that, but that analyzer will say that it not work. Okay, it may throw error. So in that scenario, what you have to do is you have to add a keyword late. So what does this late keyword do is that it will initialize this locker number only when it is required. So only during runtime. So during Dart analyzer or a compile time, this will not check, and that time it will not throw an error. So why it is basically why it is throwing that error. The reason might be that since it is a variable here, it can be changed anytime using a getter, or that's why it's throwing an error. But you are sure that okay, it will, it will be created or initialized here only, and it will not throw a null. So you have to give a late keyword. Okay. So using variables and expressions. So that is the next thing. So how do you handle nullable variables? So let's say that you have a int value and you have to assign this nullable locker number into this value. So you cannot directly assign it. If you say int value is equal to nullable locker number, that will again throw an error saying that this is nullable value and this is not a nullable value. How can you do that? So that kind of thing. So what you'll have to do is you have to give this expression of question mark in the sense that if it is null, you give it as 0. So there are different ways to do that. One thing is, if you are sure that okay, this will not be null, then you can either cast it as string, or cast it as, sorry, here it would be casting as int, or you can say an exclamation mark. So exclamation mark is similar to using a casting as this, using a casting. So it is same as that of this, but this should be done very, carefully. If you are only positive that the value will not be null, if you even have a very small doubt that the value can be null, this should not be used, that the exclamation mark at the end. Okay. Now using nullable variables. So let's say when you are using a nullable variable, so here I have created a nullable variable. It can be null. So in this method, I'm making this as Yoda, and this is baby Yoda, and let's say check locker is another method wherein I am checking this is not equal to null, and then I am printing here. So if you see here, this is I have taken from the data analyzer itself, and if you can see here, you get a yellow line, and you would be thinking that okay, I have done a null check, still I am getting a an error from the, it would be a warning that it can be null, and you would be thinking, why am I getting a warning? Because I've already checked, right? So it should not come. The reason why is that of get locker name or something like that, it inside, and imagine that actually changes this value, since it's a nullable value and it is at the class level. So what happens is that if there is another method which can change this value to null, in that scenario you will get a null exception. So that is why Yoda is this data analyzer is very intelligent, and it knows that okay, this can be null. So in that scenarios, you have a few options. One is you can use this exclamation operator, or you can typecast. You can say locker name, since it's a string, you can say locker name as string, or there is another possibility that you create a local nullable variable. So you create similar local nullable variable here. You put that, for example, let's say string question mark local variable name equal to locker name. So what happens there is that you're copying whatever is data is in this one into that local variable, and then if you're checking for null, then you are sure that okay, this local variable cannot be changed outside of this method, and then you can use it here, so the dart will not throw the error. Okay. Now again, let's come back to using nullable variables. Let's say you have this nullable variable. As I told earlier, you cannot use directly a method of a nullable variable anymore. So since a nullable variable, you have to check for null before using it. So you have to check like question mark, that is if it is not null, then only it checks for this. So, or else you can also use you can check like this as well. So this is a single line code, or if you want to do an explicit check that okay, if locker name not equal to null, this also is acceptable. So a data analyzer is intelligent enough to do that as well. Okay. So, but for example, let's say that you are doing this, right? And I am again putting a question mark here. So in that case, data analyzer will give you a warning that it is not null. You do not have to use this. So that code is redundant, so you can remove it. So that way also it's kind of increasing the code redundant. I mean decreasing the code redundancy, and it will tell you okay, you do not want to use that. It is a warning. It's not an error. If you want, you can use it, but it's of no use, right? So let's go to next variable data types, which are list and set types. So there comes a little bit of complication that okay, let's say you have a list of string, and how do I define that some things are null or not? So there are 4 different types in which you can define them, in the sense that you can say list of string. So what is list of string means that neither list, the whole list, nor the elements of the list are null. Okay, and if it is list of string, and if I'm putting a question mark here, this means the list is not null, but one of the element can be null. And this means the list is null, and here the list and the element, any of the elements can be null, or all the elements, it doesn't matter. So typically when we code, we do not put it on the left side, put it on the right side, which is not on the literal. So we put it here on the literal side, and we say, okay, string here. If you see this example here, this I've added a null, and this will not throw an error in data analyzer anymore, because I have given it the elements can be null. If I put a question mark outside, even the whole list can be null. Okay. Now, map types are a little bit more trickier than the list types. So there also you have the 4 different kind of things. If you see here, the map string int, then a question mark, or a map string int question mark, or after that 2 question marks. So if you see here, these 2 cases, right? So in these 2 cases, when all, so in maps, what is in maps? So what we have, a map is like a dictionary. Basically, you have a key and a value, and you say that I want a value using this key. You give the key to the map, and it will return you the value. So what if the value is not there, right? So there are scenarios when you give a key and the value is not there in the map. So the problem there is that the lookup can return null, even though you have said that the values or the keys cannot be null. Even though you have said that, values or the map cannot be null, you have said like that, still the return can be null. So in those scenarios, in these scenarios which I've highlighted, the lookups can be null, even though if we have said that it's not null. So if you see here, let's say int value, and I've given it like this. So in this scenario, this is wrong, and it actually throws a compile time error, because we have given a this value is not there, right? So it is a lookup. If you see here, this is actually looking for 1. It does exist, but the thing is, the lookup should always be a nullable value. So how to use this correctly, right? So there are 3 ways to use it correctly. One is you can create a nullable variable. The second one is you are sure that, okay, it cannot be null. Then you give that exclamation mark, which I talked about earlier, or else you can use that null aware operator, wherein you say that, okay, if it is null, you return another value. So there are 3 different ways. The least used should be the exclamation operator, this operator. The other 2 are fine, right? So how to enable null safety? So that is a big question. Now you have to switch to Flutter to the beta channel. It has not yet been updated to the master channel. You have to switch your Flutter to beta channel, and then give these 2 commands, that is switching it to beta channel, and then give a Flutter upgrade. It will upgrade your whole system into null safety. Now, so yeah, now why null safety? Actually, this is the way, right? In the future, you do not want the runtime exceptions of null issues. There would be a lot of null pointers you would have also faced as a developer. And if you have faced these issues, if you are converting into null safe, it is fully sound, means there is no null errors, and this actually improves a lot of performance, because in the compile time and in the when it's compiling and the runtime, they do not have to check for null and those kind of things. Okay, so there are a few important links as well. So there is detailed discussions on understanding of working of null safety. It is by Dart. There is a migration guide for the existing code, wherein you can migrate your existing code completely. So these are very detailed guides. There is null safety FAQ, wherein you can ask, there are a lot of commonly asked questions about null safety. There is null safety with, DATPad with null safety. So DATPad with null safety, I'll just open it up. So DATPad with null safety is, you can click on nullsafety.datpad.dev. So you can go and try it out. So in that scenario, you can see that whatever the null safety features are there, you can check out in this DATPad with null safety. So there is I've also given a link for the article on unsound null safety. What is unsound null safety and how you can use it. So unsound null safety means that partially you are moving your application to null safety, and partially it will be not null safe. Then at the last, I have given a link for experimenting with null safety in Flutter, wherein how you can move your application to Flutter application to null safe. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you. Any questions?
Hi again, Ganesh.
Yeah.
So amazing talk, of course. While you were delivering your presentation, we had a few questions, but you know how the Flutter community is. They're so collaborative and they keep talking amongst each other. So almost all of those questions have already been answered by our fellow viewers, which is amazing
Okay.
to see. But yes, there is one question by one of our viewers who wants to know which plugin do you use to display videos from S3 storage?
I think that's a totally unrelated question to this.
It is. It is. It is
Yeah,
completely unrelated, but that is the only
right.
question that we have.
So, I mean, there are a lot of different video plugins available. I have to get into detail of that. So, there are different plugins available. Uh, I'm not sure which one would be the best one for S3. I'm not sure about that exactly. So,
All right. Well,
I
I
use
think you have a lot of
there is a
options then.
media plugin. Yeah, there are a lot of options. You can go to the Flutter pub packages. You can search for that. And in the so my earlier talk in Flutter Bangalore was about Flutter packages. So
Correct.
wherein you can go to the Flutter packages and you can see. So as of now, the Flutter package has been developed a lot. So there are
Hmm.
a star rating and there is something like it is it is safe to use. There are a lot of things have come up in the Flutter packages, so you can go there and you can see the popularity of the Flutter package, and seeing the popularity, use that if it is an updated package.
Hmm. Right. Well, shameless marketing plug here. You can also try using Flick Video Player that is developed by the team at GeekyAnts. That is an
Yeah.
amazing video player, and I think you can use that as well. Anyway, so Ganesh, thank you so much for your talk, and of course, we are going to see you towards the end of the event again.
Sure.
So do hang around, and we'll see you again.
Yeah, sure. Bye.
See you. All right, guys. So that was Ganesh, and he was talking about null safety in Dart and what the scenario was like before, and now how it is with the recent developments in the technology. Before we move on with our agenda for the day, I wanted to quickly remind everybody that we are giving away $200 uh, gift cards and, of course, a lot of @sign merchandise. To be eligible for that, do remember to tweet about what you think is important to build trust and safety in apps. Follow @FlutterBLR and tweet using the hashtag that you see on the screen below. That's hashtag FlutterBLR. And the winners will get in touch with the winners and announce the winners towards the end of the event as well. Great. So I think the main event is now. It's time for the main event. Basically, we are going to have an intense panel discussion on building trust in apps and talk about the recent scenarios regarding data privacy and information security. So why don't I take this moment to introduce all of our panelists first. um, to begin with, I would like to introduce Venkat Raju. He is an innovation ecosystem enabler and the advisor at the At Company. He has been a chief data manager in the past, and he has worked with enterprises dealing with privacy and has been an integral part of the entire shifting of the perspective towards data security and privacy. He has been involved in building customer experiences without actually managing data, and has been an integral part in the blockchain scene in the EU, and has, of course, tackled a lot of privacy issues in the past. Let's have him on the screen. Venkat, welcome to the panel.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Glad to
How are
be
you
here.
doing today?
Very good.
It
Thank
is
you.
such a pleasure to have you here with us today. I hope I have given you a proper introduction, the one that you deserve.
No worries. I'm
Wonderful.
here as advisor to the ad company and a big believer in the Flutter community. So thank you.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Moving on, we have Jagannath. He is also the lead architect at the ad company. He has been involved in and he has been architecting systems that are complying with the GDPR, CDPR, and all the data information security acts and norms for more than 10 years now. He is the man behind the technicalities of the ad protocol that is dedicated to solving the problem of privacy on the internet today. He has been a CTO for 3 years at Shrees Infotech India and has worked with a lot of sensitive data by working on projects involving financial products. He's worked on telecommunication projects with Oracle. Uh, Jagan, welcome to the panel.
Hey, thank you.
It is such a pleasure to have you here, and I hope that we can have an amazing discussion today with you.
Sure, it's my pleasure.
Great. So moving on, we also have Sarika Gautam. She is an engineering manager at GeekyAnts, and she has been one of the oldest members of the GeekyAnts family. She has been driving technology here at GeekyAnts from the front lines. But the essential and the interesting fact about her is that she likes to describe herself as a very private person and has an absolute minimum social media footprint. So do not ask us how we got in touch with her. Uh, and she believes that it is very important for developers to be ethical when they are developing projects and products for the communities, because the current state of the internet gives everybody a lot of power, and all of this power in the wrong hands can cause a lot of trouble. Sarika, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Souvik Biswas. So Souvik is a third-year engineering student and is very deeply involved in information security and data privacy. Well, the interesting fact is that he got introduced to all of this while uh, exploring and thinking about how sensitive data like health records, etc., are managed. And to become a part of this entire space, he has worked on an app that sends messages in Morse code in a way to prevent people from accessing that data that is crucial to people. He has also, with his friends, developed a blockchain-based protocol, which, according to him, cannot be broken by any quantum computer. He is also a technical writer at CodeMagic Block. Souvik, welcome to the panel.
Hi, great to be here.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, good.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the panel for today, and we are going to be, of course, talking about trust and privacy in apps. Just to give you a small background, information security and privacy on the internet has become a huge issue today. And of course, owing to the recent debacle that has been going on regarding these major players in the industry and how they have been misusing our data or have been claimed to be misusing our data for business benefits and other unethical processes, we collectively thought that it is very important to address this issue and draw some perspective towards it. So I think we can probably begin this discussion by defining what information privacy basically is. So Venkat, I would love to start with you. How would you define information privacy? What is it for you?
Thank you. So we all understand the term privacy, but when it comes to leveraging the internet, experiencing online experiences, I think privacy has different connotations. And for me, privacy is, look, this is my data, my privacy, and nobody else is going to be exploiting and using it. And how can I take advantage of the internet, connect, share, have fun, have great experiences while not allowing anyone to intrude into what is totally private for me. And that's very, very important. And organizations, public policy boards, governments have all tried to define what is privacy here. So for example, EU went and put together a massive paper in terms of and politicians were thundering, saying all these social media companies are abusing our privacy and trust and enriching themselves, and we shall not allow them to do that. And consumers and users should take back control. And my question is, the average consumer or the user is not capable. Forget the average, even the sophisticated people do not have the technology wherewithal to protect ourselves. So fundamentally, this has to be rethought, reimagined. It is like trying to put some controls, compliance requirements on things, and the horse has already left the barn. I think we have to reimagine what is privacy and like put the adequate safeguards around that while enabling people to continue to benefit from online experiences. For me, that is privacy.
That is an interesting perspective. Sarika, what do you think? What do you think information privacy is for you, and how would you perceive it?
Yeah. So for me, as a private person, everything about me is private to me. Like I usually don't share it with anybody. So even like as a developer, what I have observed is, say, even in the database, people, at least at the developer level, or the people who are maintaining those databases have access to it. So that is the point. Like it is not exactly private, right? It is getting going into the hands of people who are strangers to me. So how can I be sure that my data is absolutely private?
Right, right. Uh, Jagan, I believe that you have worked, hands-on with a lot of data, and I mean, you sure have an idea about how privacy is perceived from the eyes of an organization or an industry. But what about you personally? How do you perceive information privacy and data?
Yeah. So to me, data privacy is somebody not using your personal data in a inappropriate way, in a way that you don't expect it to be used, right? For example, assume that you go to somebody for a blood test and they do generate a report for you, and it just happens that you happen to be one of those rare blood groups, and you know that your blood reports are actually sold to the people for research purposes. And I don't know how many of you actually know that when you go for a blood test, and of course they give you a copy of your report, but a report can also be sent to someone else for their study and research purposes. You wouldn't have even expected that something like that is happening. You have not paid them to do that. Assume that the researcher happens to make hell lot of money. There are two aspects to the privacy. Maybe, I mean, at company, what we are thriving for is the people monetize data in a way that you are unaware of, and you are supposed to get a fair share of your data. In the example that I have given, if my blood report happens to be one of such an important thing, and it's useful to somebody, and somebody making, let's say, crores out of it, and it is, you are the reason that somebody actually making that kind of money, and you should get a fair share of it. So I mean, coming to the how to monetize, that's a different topic, but the whole privacy is you don't want your data to be used in an inappropriate way. And where we are going is more permission based internet. Imagine the same situation that I just spoken of, and you can probably permission somebody to make use of your data. You tell the lab that I'm fine for you to share it, but based on these conditions. That's one aspect of it. The other kind of privacy is, for example, somebody rents you a home, and they're saying that it's all free. Imagine that Facebook, we all signed up for Facebook knowing that it's free. Now somebody is renting their home for free, there has to be some catch somewhere. I mean, there are no free base anywhere. So all these guys saying that, okay, I'm renting you my home for free, but you have to take the electricity board that I say, you have to make sure that you have to purchase groceries from the supermarket that I say, and all that. I mean, they'll dictate the terms. So I mean, privacy is, to me, you have to make sure that the data that you are giving away data, and it's not being used the way you want it to be. And then I mean, we shout at people for using inappropriately, but we should also be careful on what we are signing up for when you join a platform.
Right, right. So, Savik, you are still a student. You're in your
Yes.
late teens, and of course, with people in the late teens, and being social is a very important part of life. So I'm interested to know what your perspective towards data information security and privacy is. So I'd like to know, how do you perceive it?
Yeah, so for me, data privacy is something like we hear in modern days a lot of time. So it's mostly heard from the regulators that are owning big firms. So this is to do with our digital footprint that we have in numerous forms, starting from social media, as you said, and like in the form of Aadhaar cards and PAN cards, like we have to take into account all those because all those have a digital footprint of them, and any kind of like serious data breach would like seriously impact our life because like all the important information that are very private to us are all like have a digital footprint at least. So for me, privacy is something like the people should have control over their data at least. Like with the emerging big firms, we are sharing a lot of information with them, and with I think that that is leading to like losing our control over the information that we own.
Right, right.
So, Digvijay, if I may
Yeah,
add, so a
absolutely.
lot of the conversation on privacy is about from a regulatory standpoint. Thou shall protect user data like this, or you'll be penalized, or you are not supposed to utilize the data this way. When I talk about reimagining privacy, that means the data does not leave the user or the consumer. In fact, can you continue to transact and have those wonderful online experiences without even having to share your data? You control your data. You don't only allow a glimpse of what is required for what purpose and for what length of time. So the notion of data protection, the notion of controlling how can you utilize this data for what purpose should go away. It should, the control should completely revert back to the consumer and the user, if you will. So that's what I meant by rethinking, reimagining the entire notion around data and privacy.
Right, because one thing that I see, which is common through, I think, everybody's perspective, between everybody's perspective for data information and privacy, is just like in real life, as humans evolved, we built houses, we built rooms in our houses to have, a sense of privacy, a sense of, well, of course, privacy per se, right? To be able to have our own things to ourselves without anybody else's knowledge, which comes across as a basic right of every human. But if that is the case, why has privacy become such an issue, and why is it so hard these days? I mean, shouldn't it be just table stakes? I want to put this question to all the panelists, whoever wants to go first.
Absolutely. When the internet protocol was conceived, if people had thought about this, actually, they would have built trust in the underlying protocol, which was not. And whatever it was built for, it has evolved. And now we are all using the internet. But at the foundational level, trust has not been built, which is why one of the reasons the AT company has come up with this AT protocol, where trust is built into the foundational layer, privacy is built in, and that is how it should be done. And that omission at the start, when we created the internet, we are reaping the effects of this as the internet has evolved and have consumed all our lives right now.
Yeah, I would like to just add something. So, you know that when HTTP was actually invented by Mr. Tim Berners-Lee, uh, the only thing that he envisioned is that the universities and probably students would exchange some data over it. I mean, it's not supposed to be. It was not envisioned to be something where the commerce happens, where you have your e-commerce websites trying to sell stuff. I mean, it was not designed to be something like that. So after some time, it became a standard on the internet, and everybody started developing products on that. And it's not designed to be used in certain ways. And now, uh, as you know, there are a lot of inventors who kind of feel bad after some time that their invention were did not go in the right hands. Like, you know, the one who invented hydrogen bomb, or there are many inventors who felt that their inventions actually did not take the right shape. And even Mr. Tim Berners-Lee is involved in actually trying to say that internet shouldn't have been like this. And we at company actually kind of see that, for example, if you want to do a commerce on internet, this is not the right platform. It has to be done in a different way. That's where we come into picture. So whole ed protocol is trying to create that new way of sharing data, new way of persisting data in a way that it's normally done on HTTP.
Right, Souvik, what do you think about this? Why has privacy become such a hard thing to do?
Yes, so like the term privacy, like it differs from person to person. Like for example, there can be someone who is quite active on social media and does a lot of posts and share a lot of images about his personal life. But on the other hand, there can be someone like who doesn't want to share his personal experiences with everyone else on the internet. And I think it is quite significant to take into account. Like what I think the ad protocol is, it gives the flexibility to the people to control over their data so that they can share only the things they want to share and keep the things that are private to themselves, not even share on external databases. So it doesn't like get compromised in data breaches or anything like that.
Right, right. Sarika, thoughts?
I think initially it might have originated because of mass service providers, like maybe like people know people provide something and they assume that all consumers need the same thing, and then the commercialization of it and things like that might have contributed to it.
Right, right. Jagan, I am led to believe that you very strongly believe in the fact that the existing systems cannot really protect our data. Would you
Yeah.
like to elaborate on that?
Oh, yeah. Data protection and data safety are two different things. I mean, for everybody who is listening, actually, we talking about like, I mean, we always look at data in the context of social media, where you have a picture of yours. Probably you don't want to be seen by people that you thought went in the wrong hands. That's only a small aspect of data protection. I mean, imagine that you are trying to architect a banking system. So here there is no social data, right? It is still difficult to protect the data. There's no one like sharing data with yourself. You're just logging into your own account, probably checking your balances and trying to transfer. This is no social app, right? But the data protection is a huge deal, actually. So you hear about people stealing credit cards from shopping websites, and shopping websites are no social apps, so they still lead to data breaches and stuff like that. So inherently, I'll just give you a very simple example why it is difficult to design systems like that. Every Imagine that you log into your banking website and trying to transfer money to, let's say, somebody, let's say me trying to transfer money to Venkat. Imagine that it takes like 15 seconds. Your screen has that infinite scroll, I mean the thing that's going around. You would be really jittery, and you would think that, okay, it might be deducted from my account, but it's not credited to Venkat. Now I have to deal with the bank customer service, call these people, what a hassle. So if you have to design systems that are super fast, then it has to be architected differently. You know, the encryption and all this stuff that protects the data actually comes at a cost. So there are, you would have heard about SLAs, right? So if my transaction has to happen in 2 seconds, I cannot put one hell of an encryption there, because that's going to slow down things. So you are always stuck in this balance between protecting data versus meeting SLAs. So bank would say that if I'm the architect, they'd say that I want the transaction to happen in anything like 2 seconds, otherwise you're gone. So you kind of get into those kind of challenges. So architecturally, it offers so many challenges. And if you are actually picking a database for your data store, take any popular database, right? Oracle or any of the popular databases. So you encryption is like not out of the box. I don't know if any of you heard about like homomorphic algorithms. So idea is if you encrypt something, you can't search it, right? Let's say you want to search all the statements by name Venkat. You have all your bank statement and you want to search all those transactions that you have made to Venkat. If you want to search something, it has to be searchable, free text. But if you encrypt something, it will not become searchable. So people are coming with this whole class of algorithms called homomorphic algorithms, which are both encrypted and searchable. So you're always stuck in this dilemma of, making it fast but use complex. You see what I'm saying? So these are the kind of dilemmas as an architect that you get into when you architect systems.
If I may add to what Jagan just mentioned, having been involved with blockchain communities, dealing with data commons efforts and self-sovereign identity, I think blockchain as a technology is certainly capable of addressing the needs on privacy, protection. The challenge has been the immense overhead the blockchain protocols bring in. And when you try to scale it up, the whole thing falls apart, which is one of the reasons that attracted me towards the ad company, because here is a pretty elegant solution, which is certainly addressing all the needs that we talk or expect from a privacy standpoint, while also empowering the customers, and it is positioned to scale effortlessly, seamlessly, very well. And so all those folks in blockchain trying to solve this particular problem, I would encourage take a look at the ad protocol and the ad community.
Right. I think it would be rather interesting to see what that can do and how that can help us. But again, getting to how the ad company gives you, or the ad protocol gives you, immense control over your data, I think we need to address an underlying question that exists beneath this, is which, Sarika, I would love to have your thoughts on this, since you, of course, introduced yourself as a very, very private person. What do you consider private data, and what kind of data are you okay with sharing on the internet with everybody?
It's very subjective, I would say. Like something
Uh-huh.
like I wouldn't want to share with my professional connection something which is very private to me, which I might like to share with my family, right?
Right, right. So I think, I mean, of course, I would love to know from Souvik and the rest of the panel as well, what kind of data do you think is okay in your perspective to be shared on the internet, and what kind of data do you consider private that, uh, I mean, has become mandatory to share on the internet if you have to use certain services?
I think it's extremely contextual, and depending on who I want to share with. What I would like to share with my friends is very different what I share with my professionals at work or a potential service provider in the context of a particular transaction. And it's not just the information I want to share, but for how long, and can I take it back? I think I would want to see the flexibility in terms of how much I'm sharing with who, for what purpose, for how long. And I want that kind of flexibility.
Right, right. Because I mean, as a small example, since we're talking about building trust in apps, let's say if we are going to use a banking application for a certain bank to make online transactions, of course, a certain ease of access is provided by accessing your, probably giving an option to send money or send some information to all the contacts that you have in your phone already. But that would essentially mean that you would give that app and the organization running that app access to your contacts on your local device.
Not necessarily, and that's what I'm saying. We have come away from traditional way of how we've been doing into reimagine how it could be. So we have actually demonstrated the ability to say I can send to add Jagan without having to know any information about Jagan's details on his bank accounts, etc. And my whole point and my request to the community is we are all like intelligent folks out there, and let's reimagine and work with banks and other people saying, look, just because some things have been done one particular way for ease of use, convenience, etc., does not necessarily mean we have to continue that way. And here's what I'm saying, like you can have privacy at the same time have great experiences. have the cake and eat it too, and really seriously request people to look at the ad company and the ad protocol. I'll tell you my reasons as to why I chose to be part of this company, because user centricity is built in the business model of the company, empowering the average user consumer to take back control. That means keep their data in their own phone, for example, called in a secondary server, and they choose to reveal as little information as needed based on context. And second one, to the entire Flutter community and the developer community, I happen to know the founders, for example, and these are serial successful entrepreneurs, corporate executives, etc. But they are developers at heart, and they continue to code to this day. And the entire technology has been open sourced. And for the Flutter community as a whole, the backend technology has been built on Dart, and they do understand, appreciate the value of what Flutter could do. And I can't say enough about, like, my request is come on board, take a look what the ad company has to offer. And unlike other systems, here you get incentives as well for building applications and promoting it, where you do not have to worry about the privacy aspects. You simply write the business logic and voila, it goes, and you can be assured that privacy and trust is already built into the applications.
Right, right. I think that would probably, I mean, I think in fact we should all have a look at what that is all about and see, because I was reading about that, and it's I did come across the fact that it's highly contextual, and you decide what you need to do,
Right,
who you
because
share
you
your
did
data.
ask the question, what is private and what is public? What can I share? No, my point is, what is public in one context could be private in a different context, and you
Correct.
need to have that kind of
Control over your data.
That's correct.
Right, right. Souvik, you have had interesting perspective on things. Do you know what kind of data is out there about you? And I mean, are you aware of any options that might tell you what kind of data there is about you?
Okay, so I totally agree with Venkat. Like, that is what I wanted to say also. Like, the data that is in context with some people, it can be private, but the same data can be private to some, it with respect to another context. Like, that is the control we need over the data. That is what I think the ad protocol is giving us. Like, they are having control, like the data that we want to share with only a single person, like only that data is getting shared, not even like any information about the data related to that. So I think that's an amazing thing to have. Like
Mhm.
all the things that the current protocols that we have, they like share information, like they have a like kind of storage of all the data, and they have access to all the data that is related to that. And ad protocol is totally like sharing only the single data, not having access to any other data related to it.
Right, right. So I want to direct this conversation to more towards an industry perspective now. Jagan, I would like to start with you regarding that. Um, so, considering that in the previous year we've seen so many different data breaches, and so many different big names of the industry have come under scrutiny for utilizing or misusing data that they have been collecting about their users, and also about data server breaches, and so many things have happened. What do you think we need to consider going forward as an industry, uh, to well, if not immediately change the entire scenario of data security, but at least to take steps towards this end goal? So what do you think, what should the industry look at?
Yeah. So again, architecturally, actually, so when you have to imagine a system where each piece of data that belongs to you is kind of encrypted using your encryption keys. I mean, everybody must be aware of RSA encryption and all that stuff. Yeah. So what I'm saying is systems do encrypt the data actually, but you have one lock to the entire home. So anybody breaks it, then you're gone. But imagine the same situation. We have a huge home, but each room that belongs to you is protected by your own lock. So the whatever the huge building that you are living in can have many apartments. So the each apartment is analogous to a piece of data that you own, and you see that you protect your home with your keys. So now when you architect any system, all the data actually dumped into one place. It's not encrypted per user basis. That's where the world is going. That's where the world has to go, so that only you control the data. So imagine a bank statement coming in a form that bank cannot read, right? A bank cannot read your statement. When they actually take the statement out, unless you put your lock and turn it, you cannot see it. Actually, they do send password protected bank statements now, but someone
Right.
else can
Yeah.
read it. Let's say you can, even if I share, let's say, my bank statement with you, you cannot actually read it because it's protected by my keys. Unless I put my key, it cannot be opened. So that's the world it has to be, so that it's related to multi-tenant databases that support uh, this kind of encryption that I'm talking about. But at company and at protocol, I'm sure Servik was talking about when he speaks at a, when he says that your data is protected the way you want it, and your data can be shared the way you want it to be. This is exactly the underlying thing: is we protect data. We put the stuff. If we have to put stuff in your home, you have to give access to your home. We need your key. So each user's data is protected by their own keys. And if we are sharing with somebody else, let's say I want to say hi to Souvik. When talk about sharing the data, let's say I want to ping Souvik, say hi to him. Now that this hi is destined to Souvik, and I don't want, let's say, anyone else to read it, I would protect that data using Souvik's keys, so that only Souvik in the world can open it and see it. It's it's that's the core architectural principle behind this ED protocol, and that's the way even world should move. We have about 16 patents pending on the simple concept that I talked about, a few other things, but uh, it's very well protected thing.
So let me give a industry perspective. Having been a data practitioner in a senior role at a major bank in New York, there is this misconception that large corporates and enterprises actually want to capture the customer data for all kinds of purposes. Yes, it is true. Some a few companies have abused that trust, etc. Most of the time, trust me, these large corporations want that to provide a better customer experience and possibly upsell, cross-sell some of their other products, and not really pass it on to some third party to monetize that data. That's not what they want to do. And increasingly with GDPR, CCPA, etc., the compliance needs and the protection needs, the costs are escalating, and it is just out of control. If, for example, they get an opportunity where they don't need to save customers' data, while at the same time understand enough about the customers to provide a rich experience, trust me, they will go for it. Today, there is no real technology or the opportunity, and which is one of the things certain thought leaders in industries like banking are working with the ad company to come up with, shall we say, the new mode of doing it, where customers continue to keep their own data. They share only bits of that information required for processing, etc. But I do not have to save store it nor protect it myself, and thus dealing with all the regulators and so on. In fact, a lot of companies are thinking, and thought leaders in various sectors are looking the whole thing very, very differently.
Right, because when we talk about this, I think what you're trying to say, Venkat, is that all of these things were never built or
Correct.
perceived with ill intentions,
Right. So the
right?
continued focus on how to protect it, how to comply is the wrong question. Can we continue to do it without me having to store customer data is the question. If you pose the question that way, then hopefully we'll find the right solutions where everyone's happy.
Right, that actually makes a lot of sense, because when we talk about these things, I think there's one name that does come to mind. Facebook, really, and all the scrutiny that it has come under in the
Right.
recent times, and also with the recent privacy policies that they changed on WhatsApp, which brought about so much scrutiny onto them.
Mhm.
'Cause I personally came across this one newspaper ad in the Times of India, which is a leading newspaper in India here, and the front page, the entire front page was covered with just the words "WhatsApp does not misuse your private data." So, so the kind of scrutiny has driven
Right.
companies, these big names, to resort to making public announcements like these, which I think should be considered as a red flag, because I mean, of course, it was not ill. I mean, it was not made for ill with ill intentions, but now such it has taken such a direction. Uh,
Mhm.
so I have a question in my head which might create some sort of controversy, but I think it's worth putting out there. So I'm just going to ask all of you that anyway. Considering all of this, do you think an isolationist framework is better for data privacy? And when I say an isolationist framework, I mean like the Chinese government not letting these big companies, use their services within their borders. Do you think that is better for data privacy on the whole?
You want me to go?
Anyone can go.
Okay. My philosophy is I do believe in open systems. I do not like walled gardens, whether done by corporations or countries, and isolationism, by some definition or however the way you frame it, is closed. Closed does not uh, generate innovation and good experiences, much less the other issues. I do believe in truly open systems with adequate safeguards and privacy built in, where the users and the participants participate in such an open community and framework uh, while remaining in control. And that's the key word. If the control is distributed to the people and the participants, open systems tend to flourish and much better. That's my position.
Right. Anybody
Yeah,
else that would like to add to this?
yeah, sure. I will actually. So more than that, that will not protect any address any of the data privacy and data protection or any of the issues that we are talking about. uh, the isolation policy wouldn't help really. Even if, let's say, I don't use a Chinese app, doesn't mean that Indian app would treat me fairly. See what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Right. Yep.
so
Yep.
I you see what I mean. You actually nowadays you see that when you go and buy something, you are always asked for a phone number to give a discount, right? So why do you need that? How do the systems make use of your phone number? I mean, these are all like interesting questions. So actually, one to everybody out there, to Venkat made a very interesting point that it's not about it's not about uh, I mean, when user has his data in his control, ability to for him to fully control it and give away the information that he want to is the key point here. I'll just throw an example. Assume that you shop in 3 e-commerce websites. How would you like to tell all 3 guys that blue is your favorite color, so that as soon as you enter their e-commerce website, they not only show the right merchandise, but probably the customized entire theme that suits you, right? They are not controlled by a single corporation. It could be Amazon, Flipkart, maybe something else. But as soon as you enter there, okay, Digvijay likes black and blue. How can you tell them so that they customize that, right? All you tell them is user IDs and passwords. That's what you create. But even if, let's say, imagine that they collect that information from you, you have to do it thrice on 3 different websites. If you are shopping on 10 websites, you have to do it 10 times. And let's say if people nowadays love dark themes, what if everywhere that you go, they want to give you a dark theme? How can you tell them that? So to Venkat's point, with Ed protocol, you control your data, and if you are willing to say to all these people out there that dark is you like dark themed websites or products, and blue is your favorite color, you can say so that everybody can customize their experience for you. That's the point.
Right. 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 So, um, uh, on YouTube, I mean, I was going through the comments, and Kevin says that perhaps people should be able to declare their own terms and conditions with the websites that the websites would have to honor. And I think that kind of bleeds into the fact that if that's not possible, perhaps I think it's logical for the consumers to ask the companies that they are using or giving their data to prove the fact that their data is safe and not being used for anything else. Do you think that is something that could be used as an approach?
Again, you have to trust them that they would continue
Be
to
honest
follow
with you.
through on. Yes, that's right. Look, I mean, I am sold on the point is like, you do not trust, but you say you control it. And if you want my data, tell me for what purpose, and let's make it for that specific purpose, and they don't have control over it later or access to it later.
Right. Sarika, I would love to know what you have to think about all of this.
Maybe a little out of context, but say when the systems were not there, right? We were interacting person to person, and still your favorite bakery, the baker would know what is your choice. So you're trusting the baker that he will not divulge it to anybody else, whatever personal talk you do with him, right? So given any kind of security, I still feel that personal discretion can never be replaced. So even despite if you get the most secure system and personally you are just giving away any kind of security questions or the password to it, then what is the use of having such a security?
Right. So since we have talking about this, I think it's time to take this discussion towards a more developer-centric direction. So Souvik, since you are an up-and-coming developer, I'd like to start by you and ask you these questions. You have been involved in creating some apps that have been focused towards privacy, like the application that you developed that delivers messages using Morse code, which you can only convert and see at your own leisure, right? Uh, Considering the fact that you've worked in all of this and you've made all of this a reality, um, do you think developers should really care about privacy when they're developing applications and new products?
Yeah, absolutely. Developers should keep privacy in their mind as the like I developed that application of Morse code, like keeping in mind the privacy as the core. So that like privacy, I would like to say privacy is always based on trust. So if that trust doesn't develop, it cannot happen. Like the big firms, like they are storing our data, but why aren't we trusting them? Like because they have our data. That's the problem. Like if the firm doesn't have even our data, like the Signal, like Signal and Telegram, that type of apps are doing, like they aren't like storing the data on their database. So the people have their data with themselves. And that is the thing ad protocol is also doing. Like the people have their data on their device, and only the data that they want to share is getting like sent to other people. So I believe like as a developer, keeping privacy in mind uh, is a really good thing. Like from the starting of a production application, keeping a privacy centric system is really awesome.
Right. Sarika, you have worked on a lot of major projects in the past, right? And I mean, of course, privacy would be a concern when you've been working on these projects. So I would like to know from you, from a developer's perspective, what effect does conforming to norms like GDPR, CCPA, and the Indian Information Act, and all of these things, what kind of effect do they have on developers' approaches towards building actual products?
The norms do provide some kind of security, I would say, but norms are very single tracked, I would say, and there can always be like a workaround them. So ensuring that the security is at the system level should be like the system provider's responsibility more than any other norm or rules.
Right. So are they fully trustable? Can we rely on them completely?
Okay, it comes back to the same basic thing like today, like you have a database, it will have, say, firewalls and, say, authentication and all to access that data. But still, we have hackers who can hack into those firewalls and actually take away the or misuse the data. So, what these norms will only help us that we have ensured we have put up a firewall or any kind of protection. But at the end of the day, if the system is not foolproof, anybody can actually violate the privacy thing or steal the data.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. It is kind of unfair to expect developers of apps. Look, their focus should be on building the business logic for the purpose that they're building the application for. Yes, privacy is important, but a lot of them perhaps do not have the capability or spend the additional 30% effort in terms of doing the authentication and the right database access, etc. And which is why we have to reimagine ourselves. And to Sarika's point, systems should provide the controls here. And that is, again, a plugin for the ad protocol based approach, where if you're building on top of the ad protocol, you can trust privacy and everything is taken care of because the user controls everything, and you can just focus on your own application and just go forward. And to the earlier point about productivity savings and reduction on effort by our esteemed speaker at the start, at least the ad company estimates a developer can save at least 30% of effort, not having to worry about the repeated authentication and database access, etc., and just focus on the application logic, knowing fully well privacy and everything is going to be baked and built into the application.
Right. So, since we are into, I mean, this meetup, this event has been focused on Flutter a lot. So let's bring Flutter into the picture as well, and say, let me ask you guys this: is Flutter the one of the, well, if not the ideal, but one of the ideal frameworks for optimum app security?
Well, I will leave it to the Flutter experts to say that, but I can say the ad company and the Flutter is like a match made in heaven. As I said, the backend is built on Dart, and all the applications right now are very Flutter centric. And the ad company has made a judgment call that indeed it is a right framework going forward in promoting this privacy and trust, etc. But I will leave it to the Flutter experts to comment on this.
Well, Flutter
Yeah.
experts.
Yeah, definitely. Flutter is really a good platform for like a very secure application. Like Flutter gives access to the native side of things directly, so that like you do not have any kind of bridge like that used by other frameworks. So you have directly access to the native side of things. So like for the local security, like local storage, there is already a plugin, a lot of plugins, I would say, that like locally secure your data using the native channels. In Flutter, there is native platform channels that you can use to directly access the native side of things, Android and iOS, and also on desktop web. So I think Flutter is really a good platform to work on privacy. And ad protocol, like I have worked on it, and it is purely made in Dart. So it's amazing to like integrate it with Flutter, and it's so easy to work on. Like it integrates so well with Flutter, I would say.
Sarika, thoughts?
I think Flutter as a platform is good to work with beautiful UI and ease of development. But frankly, like anything that you use tools to create an app, at the end of it, it will be built into a binary. So I wouldn't say that this one particular language is secure, the other one is not. Because at the end of the day, it is the system architecture which makes it secure. And almost all modern frameworks provide all kinds of tools to ensure that.
Right, right. Jagan, I think you would second that motion.
Absolutely. So, like the way you get garbage collection, all that stuff out of a programming language, like Dart gives you so many things for free, right? So you code in, first of all, you're coding in a high level object oriented programming language. You simply say, you extend something, you get all that inheritance, all that stuff for free. Similarly, you the protocol, so that's what a language gives, what a framework gives, all that stuff. And be underneath that, we have this protocol which gives so many other things which a language doesn't give for free, like authentication, authorizations, encryption, all that stuff. So basically, it's the Flutter with the combination with something really secure. In this case, a protocol. That's what actually makes it secure. So I would recommend a Flutter and Dart for a language because it's easy to learn. It's so close to some of the language that you would have learned previously. It's close to Java, for example. You get, as a language, it's a sound thing. They have gotten rid of many unnecessary keywords and stuff like that. It's simple to learn, but then a combination of that with the protocol, actually, what enables you to develop secure apps.
Right, right. Souvik, you mentioned that you've come across tools and things and that you can use in Flutter to, enhance the privacy and security. Would you like to elaborate on those?
Yeah, so like I said, like on the for the local storage and stuff, there are like plugins for that already available, and one of them is Flutter Secure Store. So it gives access to the local native storage and encrypts the data. It takes care all of the encryption technologies of that, and like the Flutter all uh, has a biometric also, a native channel to access biometric. And I think the add protocol is like on top of that, like it's giving all of the stuff like the authentication and all of the things are already baked into that add protocol, so you don't have to take care of anything using the Flutter UI. Like you can already only focus on the business model, and all the complex stuffs are already handled by the add protocol.
Okay. Right. So, I think we have probably talked about a lot of different aspects and looked at this issue from a lot of different perspectives. I think the only thing left to talk about is the future. So, I'd like to put this final question to all of our panelists here. Um, what are your vision? What do your visions look like for privacy, let's say 5 to 10 years from now, for the future generations, of course? What do you think is the future for information security? Well, Venkat?
Sure. As I said, I do believe in open systems, no wall gardens. People should be able to leverage something wonderful like the internet and have fantastic experiences without having to give up their privacy, without their data being abused, and also empower them, to Jagan's earlier point, the ability to monetize. So, for example, if I want to monetize my own data, perhaps I am there saying, hey, these are my interests, whether my color is blue or I'm looking for a new car. Let companies come and bid for my needs, and I'm willing to share minimal information for the transaction to happen. And so all such wonderful things done without me having to put data elsewhere and then worry about protection and etc. I want to keep my own data and have wonderful experiences.
Amazing. Jagan, your thoughts?
Yeah, future is certainly bright. There's a lot of innovation. there's a lot of innovation that's happening in this space, and you would experience it once you actually come and write a hello world with us. You would see that it's easy. So whatever Savik was saying before, just try to redo the to do app by the speaker that we have on the call today using a protocol. Give it a try and give us your feedback.
Sarika, how do you envision data privacy in the future?
I agree with them both. I feel whatever it is, it'll be positive and like a little bit adaptable behavior would just make it the norm.
Okay. Souvik, icing on the cake?
Yeah, I totally agree with Venkat and Jagannath with this. And like the future is very bright for like with the introduction of the ad protocol. And this is it, like it is giving all the steps like authentication, all the data storage, all those steps are already handled by it. So you do not have to worry about all the steps while building an application and only focus on the UI part and on your business model. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, in conclusion, I think since mother is the need of all invention, and now that we have felt the need to secure ourselves on the internet, I think it is we are bound to come up with new ways to preserve our data, and of course, share as much or as little as we want with the people who we want to share it or we don't want to share it with. And I think the ad company has already taken the first successful step towards that new future. And personally, to the ad company, I would like to wish all the best in all of their future ventures. And I hope this sparks that much needed revolution that we are looking for. For our future generations as well. I think this discussion has been very fruitful, and to all the viewers, I hope you've had new perspective towards looking at privacy. And if you hadn't been concerned about how much data there is about on the internet about you and how secure or private you are on the internet, I think this would be a good starting point for all of you to start thinking in that direction, and probably take important steps to protect yourselves and be safe at all times while having all the amazing experiences that the internet has to offer. I think that sums it up. Also, to the panelists, I would like to thank you guys so much for taking out the time and talking to me here today and in front of all these viewers. I'm hoping that we have given these viewers enough to think about and enough to start. Of course, I mean, it goes beyond saying that we have given them enough reasons to at least try ad science and give it a shot and see how well that works for them. So thank you very much to all the esteemed panelists for joining me here today.
Thank you. Thanks, Digvijay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, before we close the event, I would also like to invite all of our speakers on the screen. So we can have Ganesh is here. Hi again, Ganesh.
Hi.
And Samir is here too.
Hi.
Wonderful. It is so great to have all of you guys here. I want to extend a personal thank you to all of you guys for taking out the time and speaking to all of our viewers and sharing all of your invaluable knowledge with them. Since of course the giveaways have been going on throughout the event, and we already have the information that we need. To all the winners, we are going to be reaching out to you very, very soon, and we'll get back and we'll get in touch with you regarding the future steps that we need to follow to get you your prizes, of course. And I hope that all of our viewers have filled up the form that is linked in the description to claim your $10 AdSign voucher to get you started with AdSigns and to help you take the first step towards reclaiming your privacy on the internet. With that, Venkat, Jagan, Ganesh, Souvik, Sarika, and Samir, I want to thank you guys so much for making this event a huge success. I had a time of my life, and of course, I'll be honest with you guys, I had not looked at things from a certain perspective, but now I think these discussions have forced me to rethink a lot of things and reimagine a lot of things that I do on the internet. Especially to Samir And Ganesh, thank you so much for talking about your experiences and the things that you have been doing in the recent times. I am pretty sure that our viewers would like to try these things as well. And uh, well, this is what we do as a community, right? We help each other and we build new things together. So thank you guys so much for that. I want to extend a massive thank you to the ad company for collaborating with us for this event and sponsoring all the giveaways. Um, it has been a wonderful experience, and we are really looking forward to more future collaborations with Ad Science and the ad company. Um, Also, I would like to give a big shout out to the team that has been working towards the end, in the back end, behind the scenes. Rishabh, Maheshwari, Shweta, Gaurav, to all the guys, Anthony, Jori, everybody from the ad company as well, who have been working with us tirelessly day and night to make this event and present it as we have today in front of all of you viewers. I want to thank all the viewers for taking out the time over, because I know all of our viewers are in different time zones, and it is, I really appreciate, we as a collaborative company really appreciate you taking out the time and spending this with us. And on that note, I would like to conclude this event. Thank you so much, guys. But before we officially do, there is a small tradition that we used to have in person. When we used to have these events, we used to have a team picture of everybody who's participated in this event, but we cannot do that now. So we just take screenshots of everybody on screen. So I'm going to do that right now. As soon I'm going to count to three, and I want everybody to strike a pose, say something, and we will take a quick picture to keep this as a memoir. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose. Amazing, amazing. Once again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Venkat, Jagan, Ganesh, Souvik, Sarika, Samir, and all the viewers. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do remember to follow FlutterBLR on Twitter. Do remember to stay in touch with us at GeekyAnts on Twitter, at GeekyAnts on Facebook, at GeekyAnts on LinkedIn. And we would love to talk with you guys about anything that you want to talk about. And we will see you all at the next event. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.